Well, my radishes are flourishing, as you can see. And those guys are just really growing big. Right here, this plant is, I think that's a okra plant. Or no, that's a cucumber plant. And this right here is the okra plant. And up here, this green bean plant is doing really well. And then there I've got a little bell pepper plant that's really not growing too fast, but we'll see what happens. Give it a little time. Hopefully it'll take off a little, but those radishes are just going crazy. They're kind of covering everything up. And if I have to, I'll trim them back or just pull them to give room for the other plants. The radishes were just kind of I was bored kind of thing. Over here I've got still just the 4 leafy green plants. This one's starting to get past the cotyledon stage, which is cool. I think that's a Swiss rainbow chard or something. This is red leaf lettuce, and this is black seed something lettuce, and this is kale. I didn't get the plants for the middle two, didn't ever germinate, so I'm gonna order some butter crunch lettuce and plant those later, but that's a side project for now. I've been hanging out here with the fish this evening on the patio. It's gorgeous summer Pacific Northwest evening. And anytime a human gets close, these guys get all excited, though they've just had a snack. You can see some algae still, or some seaweed still floating around, and those 2 clips have a little bit of algae stuck in them. The fish have eaten the algae off of the clips pretty much, or pulled it off and nibbled at it, and the results are the seaweed's just floating around in the tank. As you might notice, the tank is getting a little green and gross. There's definitely a thick coat of slime on that pump, and an ever-growing coat of slime on that PVC cave, which is a little unpleasant. The floor of the tank is getting kind of dark with algae growth, plus I assume some fish waste. I probably need to clean that fish waste out of there with some kind of rock cleaner, rock pump thing, rock vacuum. But I'll investigate that and do another update once I've got a strategy in mind. I've just given them that algae, or that I keep saying algae, that seaweed snack. I typically feed them in the morning when I get up, grab myself some tea or something, and head out and check on the plants and check on the fish and feed the fish. Maybe take a water sample. Their normal diet is this pellet food that I bought when I bought them at the fish store. It was recommended by that fish store owner. Man, that little hummingbird is mad at me for being near its food. Anyway, excuse me. So, where was I? Oh yeah, the pellet food, and sometimes I feed them brine shrimp, but I've noticed a problem with and it seems to be getting worse, with feeding them the pellet food. That orange and white fish in there, rainbow, is by far the largest of the 6. It's confident in its size, so it kind of pushes the other fish around a little bit. It's not mean or anything. It doesn't pick on the other fish. It doesn't bite them, but it does muscle in and make sure that it gets the food and not the others sometimes. And additionally, its mouth is much larger. Now, the Shabunkins, I don't know if, for one thing, their mouth's not a whole lot bigger than the pellet. So the pellets are a little on the large size for them. They're a little on the small size for what the bottle says is acceptable. They don't dislike the food. It seems to be a good source of nutrients for them. The problem is is they seem to get like a running start at food that's on the surface. Now, I don't know if that's like they'll dart up to the surface, they'll try to snatch the food, and then go quickly back underwater. I don't know if that's because they're afraid that they're gonna get eaten by a predator, or if they think that it's a bug, and so if they don't eat the bug, snatch the bug with speed, that it'll get away or something. But I have noticed that that is their typical behavior, and the problem is that the pellets are pretty big for their mouth, so if they don't line it up just right, the pellet will like bounce off their lips, and they don't eat anything. So it can take those shubunkins a little while to get fed. And little Miss Piggy Fish, Rainbow, with the big mouth, will just gobble those pellets up, like just gobble, 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 just eat them all. And it's funny, like it'll eat 3 or 4 in one little burst, just like suck them down, and then it'll go eat more. So it's like a voracious eater and unapologetic to the other fish. It just goes and eats it all. And so, I'm at a point where I almost need to like physically separate them into different tanks or something, or put some kind of divider so that the rainbow can't, is literally separated from the others while they're feeding, and can't get over and eat the other guy's food. But that seems pretty complicated and difficult to get worked out. But if I don't do that, then I don't know. Like, Rainbow is eating 2, 3, 4 times as much food as the others. Maybe twice as much as the others combined, all by itself. And that's bad. That's bad for Rainbow, I think. You don't want the fish to overeat. I think it's bad for the others because they don't get enough food. So it's like, if I put in more food so that everybody gets some, then Rainbow gets a ton of food. And that's bad. That's just real bad. So, yeah, the pellet food I don't think is working out. I think I'm going to have to shift to something else. Now, I have brine shrimp, and that seems to work out really well. But I don't want to feed it to them all the time, because then they'll eat that only. I don't want to spoil them. Plus, it's good to give them a variety. So I want to feed them regular fish food, and I think I'm going to go to flakes. The flakes, I think I can smash up a little and scatter across the surface, and then they'll all get kind of a more even chance to get food. Similar to the brine shrimp, like it comes in these pellets that are about the size of the tip, front segment of your finger, and you can smash those pellets up into fine powder and kind of sprinkle it across the surface. And when I do that, like they all get a pretty good meal, I think, because Rainbow can't just gobble it all up right away. And it's small enough that the shubunkins don't miss, and it seems like a better meal for them. So I think that's going to be a better approach. I think I'm going to switch from the pellets to the flakes, at least until these guys get bigger. Now, to combat the algae problem that I have in the tank, and there are a couple things that you can do. You can basically you need to add. I need to add 1 or more algae eaters to that tank. The first approach, and this is what I've actually done, is you can get some snails, basically. The most common variety that people put in their tanks are the ram's horn snails, it seems. They seem to be kind of the, when you do a Google search, that's what kind of comes up first and most often. There are, of course, many kinds of snails that will work just fine, but ram's horn snails in particular seem to be hardier. Like, they have a wider variety of temperatures and stuff that they're willing to tolerate. And in fact, the snails that I've ordered are ram's horn snails. I got 7 of them. And the documents claim that they can handle the same temperatures as these goldfish, so it should be a good match. So they should be here in a couple days. As soon as they arrive, I'll do another video after I've gotten the snails situated and into the tank. Now, hopefully, they can make a dent in my ever worsening algae problem. They should just, kind of creep their way around on every surface and kind of randomly clean everything the same way that a Roomba would. Just let them do their thing over and over again, and eventually all the surfaces will be cleared off, or stay close to cleared off. That's the hope, anyway. So I'm going to add those 7 snails. If they don't quite cut it, like if they need some supplemental effort, I probably will get a bristle-nosed or bushy-nosed plico, plicostomos. There are lots of different algae-eating fish that you can buy, different kinds. There's one that kind of piqued my interest was the Siamese algae eater fish. And they're small fish, about the size of those shabunkins, kind of at their maximum size. But they behave or they get along well with the other fish, supposedly, and do a good job of cleaning up algae on all sorts of surfaces. The problem with those guys is that they're kind of acrobatic, and they'll end up like jumping out of the water sometimes. And my issue with them is that I've got those pipes in the back, so the tank's not completely closed off. There's a little bit of open air back in the back in particular, and that's a problem because then the fish might jump out of the tank and die. I might not notice in time to save them, so that would be bad. So I think I'm going to avoid those. I don't think they're a perfect fit for my situation. Plus, I don't think, temperature-wise, I don't think they can quite handle the fluctuations that are existent in this outdoor environment. So I don't think they're quite the right choice for my tank. You can also get little twig catfish or auto catfish, just little guys that kind of, they're a little bit reclusive in my understanding. They like to hide, and but they stay really, really small. And the concern that I have is that as these goldfish get bigger and those little tiny catfish stay little tiny, like we're talking like at full grown, they're like an inch long. So they're never going to be as big as those shabunkins are right now. And if these fish get twice their current size or more, they might pick on or even kill and eat those catfish. And so that would be obviously not ideal. So I think I'm not going to go with those. Even if I need a supplement to the snails, I think they're probably not the right choice. And then the third, the kind that is probably the most common, actually, for an algae eater, is called the plicostomos, or the colloquially referred to as the plico. I think the plicos are great. The problem with them is that they can be, like these goldfish, they will grow unchecked. And when the goldfish outgrow this tank, that's one thing, because there's a market for large goldfish. I can either sell them, or I can just give them back to the fish store and they'll sell them. But either way, there's a humane way to deal with them. I could build my own koi pond, just get a larger aquarium, or whatever. But with a plico, there's really nothing you can do with them. There's no market for used plicos. They eat a lot. They are territorial and a little bit aggressive, especially when they're big. And they will totally eat small fish. So they're just not really an ideal fish. And people don't want a big plico. They want a 3 or 4 inch plico, maybe, in a big aquarium to keep everything clean. But they don't want a big one. They don't want a 3-foot plico, which is actually within the common plico can get like 2, even 3 feet long when they're fully grown at the end of their 20-year life or whatever. So, and the fish stores won't take them back. Nobody wants a big plico. They won't be able to sell them. So you're not going to find a person to buy them from you. The only thing you could do really is get a huge aquarium and put them in that, or build a koi pond and put them in there. You can't legally release them in the wild. They're not native to the United States. They are a South American fish, Amazonian and Brazilian, whatnot. So the common pleco, the internet says is really not the right choice for most people. Like, that you should really think about it before you buy one, because they're not really ideal for most situations. So, but there are other kinds of plecostomos, particularly the bushy nose and bristle nose, that do stay small. Like, I think the bristle nose varieties tend to be between 3 and 5 inches when they're full grown, and that's actually small enough to stay in this tank for its entire lifetime. So I think 1 or maybe 2 of those is probably a better choice than the common pleco, and possibly a better choice than any of the various kinds of catfish. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with the snails and see how they do. If the tank gets clean and stays clean, then problem solved. If it doesn't, then I think I'll probably, invest in a bristlenose pleco. So I'll update more after the snails arrive, and then of course do another update once the snails start doing their thing to see how they're doing, and see if I need to maybe get them some help in the form of a pleco. Or maybe I'll do some more research and some other kind of algae eater will pique my interest and I'll get that instead. I don't know. We'll see. But for now, that's the plan. Snails, and then if necessary, 1 or more plecos. So that's pretty much it for now. Until next time. Bye-bye.